While we're just waiting for a few more people to come in, I just want to thank you all for coming tonight. This is Trisha from the library talking. As Vero said, we're recording this and we will be putting it on the library's YouTube channel along with the other videos that recordings we've made of these cooking presentations this season. You can find all of that on the library's YouTube channel. And again, just a reminder that we'll send out the recipes that Vero's making tonight right after the presentation. And I did want to just let everybody know about our next Zoom program we're going to be having through the library is Wednesday, March 1st at 6 p.m. It's a New Hampshire Humanities Council program called Ireland's Great Famine in Irish American History, which you can sign up for on the library's website calendar. And I think that's it. I'd like to thank Veronique, as always, for doing this. If you don't know Veronique already, she is one of our alternate trustees running for full-time trustee in March, and a wonderful friend to the library and a fantastic chef. So Vero, I'll turn things over to you.
Thanks, Trisha. Good evening, everybody. Trisha, let me know if there's any problem with hearing, and also, oh yeah, we're recording. So good evening. Well, we're almost at Valentine. I know we were delayed a week, and I was quite worried today because 55 and wind last week, minus something and no wind. So I guess the weather is always bringing us something fun and different. So tonight we're gonna do three things. We're gonna try to. We're gonna do cheese puffs, and the French name is choux or gougère, and I'll explain you what that means. And then an orange chocolate mousse, and then chocolate truffles are more kind of like the French way to make truffles. So we start with the gougère, which are cheese puffs, basically choux pastry. So you might know choux pastry from mostly like the big pyramids that are served at some weddings or some events. They're called croque-en-bouche, and so choux can be used in a savory way or in a sweet way. And usually you'll see them like laced with caramel, and they're stuffed with crème pâte, with vanilla flavoring or chocolate. But there's also choux that are not stuffed and that are just used as appetizers, and they are just like little puffs. And you flavor them with spices like nutmeg and different. You can use different hard cheeses to perfume them. So the choux started in the Middle Ages. Actually, they were a very popular little cake, and they were called papellini, and they were kind of all over mainland Europe in different variations, obviously, but they didn't really look like what we have today. All it made it kind of made a choux because there was air inside, and so that's why it was called papellini, which would kind of be like pop, which has air, and then when you bite into it, it's crusty, and then there's nothing in the middle. So in the mid 18th century, the two royal French chefs, Carême and Avine, decided, yeah, that's okay, but that's kind of boring. So we're gonna refine that because the King's Court deserves better than these papellinis that all the meager peasants are having all over Europe. So they decided to perfect the dough a little bit. So they changed the recipe, and they also started making the shape of a sprout, and that's why it's called pâte à choux, because a choux in French it's like a sprout. So that's how it got its name, the choux. And so the pâte à choux is the sprout shape dough. Not to be confused, some people confuse with puff pastry because that's something different. Like they're called cheese puffs, but they're really choux. Even here, you'll find some recipes and they'll tell you to bake some choux. And it's like CHOUX. And that also means, other than sprout in French, it also means a cabbage. So it's like one of those words that has two meanings. It also looks like a mini cabbage if you use a nice shaped tip in your pastry bag. So the choux in France, it's kind of like a friend or an enemy. Some people, they always make choux by hand, not using a food processor, which is what you're going to use tonight to make it a little easier on the arm wrestling, incorporating the eggs into the dough. In France, most people, they just make them by hand, and it's either or. Either you know how to make them, either you don't. So if they fail, basically the dough will separate, and when you bake it, you just get like some kind of flat, non-airy pancake kind of thing. Hopefully this recipe, for me, I've done it many times, and it's the Ina Gartman recipe. It has worked for me with the food processor. So I hope it works for you when you try. And so we will start. So I had sent the ingredients recipe. So I'm gonna first I'm gonna heat up milk, butter, salt, pepper, and nutmeg if you use it all together until they're scalded. And usually they say until they're scalded. So that's like the temperature should be like 180 Fahrenheit to kill bacteria in the milk. Obviously, most of the milk most of us use is ultra processed. So you really don't have to get it up the way to 180, but it should be scalded, which is when it just starts to form a skin that's hot enough. So we're gonna go there with it. You do not need to have the ingredients at room temperatures because we're gonna get them up there in the pan. So remember we had talked about when we use milk in a pan, we rinse it with water first so it doesn't crust over at the bottom, which I've done. And just make sure you get the water out really good. And so we're gonna go like medium high heat, so we get a nice mix going to temperature, not too slow. So 1 cup of milk. Yes, 1 whole stick of butter, 4 ounces. And I just chopped it up in like little, smaller pieces so that it melts faster. Pieces of that size. And then we're gonna add salt and pepper, so to taste. That's the best time to put it in is now. Remember, you're gonna add a good amount of grated cheese, so you don't want to put too much salt. And nutmeg. And that's if you don't like nutmeg, just leave it out. You'll still get a pretty nice taste just from the cheese. But I love nutmeg, so I'm gonna add it. So basically what we're making is, it's kind of like a little dry puff. Some people have dips with them if you want. Some people serve them with crudités. It's really a little versatile appetizer. And you can also, once you bake them, you can freeze them, and you can like just warm them up in your oven on a baking sheet at like 350 for 5 minutes. And because they're small size, they'll come right back to temperature. So, but you don't want to have them in the microwave. So I'm also going to turn on the oven at 425 right now. And I have 2 lined baking sheets with parchment paper, so that when we are ready to pipe a little later, we'll have everything lined up for us. So everything's melting nicely. And I want everything to be really melted together and really blended in. And then it's gonna be just preparing you. It's gonna be all about speed. So once we have the milk and the butter at the temperature that we like, we are gonna incorporate all this flour, which is 1 cup, but we're gonna go, sometimes recipes are like, oh, add a 1/4 cup first and then twist, go turn. No, we're gonna just throw that whole bowl in one scoop inside, and we're going to start vigorously turning with our spoon. Oops. It's not go well if I turn my stove off. So, and I insist on beat vigorously with a wooden spoon. Wooden spoon is the best instrument. You could get away with a metal spoon, a metal round spoon, like a soup spoon. The spatulas don't work really well unless that's a very hard spatula because they're too soft, so they are not doing the movement for what you want to achieve in the pan. So my milk is just at this little boil here, like very little bubbles, kind of getting some colors, smelling nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off before I burn it. And I'm gonna add the whole bowl of flour. I'm gonna turn vigorously, and I'm gonna turn the heat down to low. And you want to stir constantly for 2 minutes. So you don't want to stop stirring. Once you have dropped this bowl, you do not want to stop stirring. So 1, 2, 3. That's it. And so it's going to be lumpy at first, and then it's going to start to be kind of aggregate. And you want to keep cooking. Trying to get a low. There you go. So when it's detaching from the pan, like here, it's completely detaching from the pan. You just keep eating with a spoon. And so what it's doing is it's really starting to cook the flour molecules inside the liquid. Just beating it and having a nice kind of liquid mixture. Then we're gonna go to our, so that's very good. It's detaching, that's what you're looking for. The consistency, see it's detaching from the pan. And we're gonna dump it in our food processor. That's done. Food processor. And now we are gonna add our eggs. So there was 5 eggs. You don't need to have them beaten in an omelette. Just add 5 full eggs. And your cheese. And I'm gonna keep some cheese to put on the top to bake, to have a nice little crispy top. So pour most of the cheese and the eggs. So eggs and cheese. And we are going to pulse. So we're going to use the pulse function. So we get something very consistent, like a dough. That's like gonna be small, but that's gonna be kind of thick. And we're almost there. And so, like we did, we don't want to wait for the dough to be cold when we start doing that. We want to do it right away, just okay, I'm going to show you the dough. So see, it's pretty consistent. Looks like a heavy crème pâte or see, or like a heavy mashed potatoes that you didn't drown in liquid. So it shouldn't have any lumps and shouldn't have any visible you know, different colors. It's very yellow because of the egg yolks, and it's pretty uniform. So that's what we're looking for. So now we're gonna want to pipe it on our baking sheet. So baking sheet, parchment paper, and some people do it with just spoons. I like to pipe it. And if you don't have a piping bag with a tip, don't fret. It's actually easier to use a Ziploc bag that you can throw at the end instead of trying to clean your piping bag. Personally, I have piping bags, but this is so much easier. So it's obviously regular gallon Ziploc bag. You're gonna fill it with the mixture, and then you're gonna cut the tip. Don't do like I've done before, the other way around, to be prepared, because then you're trying to stuff your mixture into it and it's oozing out before you want it to ooze out. So I'm gonna put all of that goodness in the bag. And when I say in, it's in, not out. And then we're gonna pipe some little shoes or sprouts on our baking sheet. So I would say, you know, there's those macaron mats that have like the little round that's already pre-drawn on the mat, so you know what kind of size. Some people like shoes like eclair shapes, like mini eclair shape, to be long, oblong, and narrow and oblong. But most people just do the shoe like the round shape. So I have my mixture here, and see I left some air here. So when I cut, it doesn't pour out immediately. So I'm gonna close my bag. Get the air out of it, and then cut the tip. So be careful not to cut a too big a tip, because sometimes if you cut a too big a triangle here, it really comes out really big. So I always try with like a little corner, and then we'll come back to it if it's not big enough, but I think it's gonna be fine. Okay, so start piping. So see, that's perfect. So you're gonna pipe little like 1-inch rounds. I'm gonna start here. And right now, do the best you can. When we're done piping out, we're gonna round them up with our finger or spoon, so that there's no tip coming out. So and you don't need to space them a lot. They're not gonna expand in diameter a lot. So maybe like 1.5 inch between each shoe. And once we've done this one, I'll show you how to flatten them. So we have our shoe, and then we wet our finger, or you can use a spoon, but with your finger works fine. And with your thumb, you just flatten up the tip of each one. So when they come out, they don't have like this weird pointy top, because they're supposed to be kind of round. And you can really do it with any finger. And then don't forget, we're gonna sprinkle some of our leftover cheese. So it works well when your finger is wet. Once your finger has done 3 or 4, it's sticky and it doesn't flatten. So here we have flats, and then we're gonna sprinkle some of our leftover grated cheese, kind of like around all over. You know, not too much, just a little. And sometimes the sweet shoe are covered with something called craquelin, which make them look like crackled. And that's mostly for the sweet shoe. So we had our oven at 425. So that's, they have their little cheese on. And they're going in the oven for 15 minutes. And in my enthusiasm, I forgot to brush them with the egg wash, which is also an optional thing. Some people don't like the choux to be too brown and crispy. So if you don't like that, if you like something more like what, you know, barely colored and not cracky, then you just want to leave the egg wash out. So we'll do one without and one with. So it is going in the oven for 15 minutes. And we really want them golden, nothing more. We don't want anything more than golden, because once it gets past golden, it's gonna be getting really dry inside. So right now, the center is gonna stay a little moist, but it will be baked. But if you bake them for too long, what happens is you will really dry them out. And after, you know, maybe when you get them out of the oven, they'll be okay to eat. But after just a couple hours, so if you do them for an appetizer with friends and have them out, they'll be very, very dried up and hard and not very pleasant to eat. So something to remember too. And if you're planning to do them and say you do them the day before a party, you just bake them a couple minutes less. And then the day of the party, you just put them back in the oven for 2 or 3 minutes. They'll be warm. They're definitely better eaten warm or room temperature, but best is eaten warm. And so my fingers again, made another little batch. So I'll do egg wash on this one, which, remember, egg wash, it's an egg beaten lightly with about half a teaspoon of water to make it a little more liquid. So we'll see the difference between the one with egg wash and the one with no egg wash when they come out. And as far as the topping, you can also put sesame seeds or poppy seeds. They look nice like that. Gives them a little touch. You can even put nori seaweed flakes. So you can really vary. Some people like to spray some cayenne pepper on top of them if you want them to be a little spicy. So there's definitely a lot of variation you can do from the base. You know, the dough recipe is the same, but then you can really augment them with different flavors that would be to your liking. Toasted sesame seeds are good too. You can buy the black ones, which are basically already toasted sesame seeds, which look really cool and are really good. So just a couple little things you can do with them. The other thing you can do with the choux is instead of putting the cheese, just forgo the cheese completely, just do the recipe without the cheese. And then once they get out of the oven, you can delicately cut them in half and you can stuff them. Some people put like fish roll, you can put goat cheese, you can put boursin, you can like decorate, you know, with a little piece of fennel. So you can really do, you can make little mousse, like savory mousse. So you can make sweet pea mousse, which tastes delicious in there. You can, and so those would be obviously cold. So you let the choux cool a little, and then you put your little filling in there. Those are also very good. So that's really some things you can do with the pâte à choux. So we'll have to really cross our fingers and hope that the shoe will rise, because that's really what it's all about. So we obviously, what we piped was about half an inch to 3/4 of an inch high. And we are hoping that it will at least double so that we get something more like that all around, like a little ball, than something just like flat. So cross fingers. So are there any questions on the shoe? Because I thought that would be better to answer them now before we move on to the chocolate desserts. No questions on the shoe? Okay. So we'll put the rest of my shoe stuff in here, and I will clean up for 1 second. I hope everybody's ready for Valentine to make something delicious for this nice fun day. There's a lot of plans for Galentine's now, which is really nice too. We're gonna do something at work, which will be really fun. So the next recipe will be the chocolate orange mousse. So for the chocolate orange mousse, that's something there's like a million recipes about for the chocolate mousse. There's recipes that use butter. There's recipes that use heavy cream, recipes that use sour cream, recipes that tell you not to put the egg yolks in the chocolate, recipes that do. So once again, I've used one that I've been familiar with over the years, that I've used probably the most. And same, you can do a lot of little tweaks to it. You can, for example, you can add a little touch of alcohol, like I did with Grand Marnier. You can add Cointreau, that's an orange liquor. You can also add, orange essence, which is non-alcoholic, obviously. You can add some orange peel to give it a good fresh taste. The orange peel, if it's reinforced with either a drop of orange extract, like vanilla extract, or half a teaspoon of liquor, really comes out well through the mousse. You also don't want to overpower the mousse, so lemon does really not work well with it. Pomelos, grapefruit works really well. Obviously, you can only do the rind. You're not going to find some grapefruit extract. So just the rind, but it works well. Or you can go the other way, which a lot of people go with cherry flavor. So cherry flavor, you really only are going to get with kirsch, which is a cherry liqueur. And obviously, I'll tell you how much to put. You don't want to put too much of that at all in there, just a little dab, just to give it a little something else beside the chocolate, something to complement the chocolate. You can also, I'm watching over there because I reheated my melted chocolate. You can also, and I lost my train of thought. You can also use pepper. So there's modern recipes that people use either Sichuan pepper or regular three-color pepper in the mousse. Same, you have to be careful with that, not to use too much, not to overpower the chocolate. So if you do that, I would try with a really, really small quantity at the beginning to see where you get. And maybe the next time, you want to put more, and hopefully not less, which means you would have really ruined your palate with the first batch. So I'm just melting my chocolate right now. And for the chocolate, I use this 70% bittersweet chocolate because we're going to add sugar. And you can use the 60% bittersweet chocolate too. It would be fine. I highly recommend using baking bar chocolate, not baking chip chocolate chips, because chocolate chips have fat added to them compared to the bar chocolate. And so it's not going to produce the same kind of silky result at the end. The chocolate chips are okay in a cake or things like that, but not really in the mousse because there's only like 3 ingredients in the mousse. So you're going to really taste principally the chocolate, and the better quality of the chocolate, the more you can appreciate the taste of the chocolate in the mousse, because it's really all about mostly chocolate. So I have my chocolate. Remember, when you melt your chocolate, to not have it seize, which you'll know when it seizes because it becomes kind of like grainy and hard in the middle of the process of melting. So it's better to melt it in a double broiler, which I'm doing right now. And also, you can melt your chocolate in the microwave, but you have to be super careful, because that's most of the time I've done that to kind of cut corners. That's where I seized it, because it goes really slow, and you check it twice and all of a sudden it goes really fast. So if you melt your chocolate in the microwave, do it in 30 seconds increment, and after like a minute 30, if you're still melting, do it in open the microwave every 10 seconds and stir and look at the consistency, because it really, once it goes over, it's kind of too late. And also, do not add water when you're melting chocolate. I know a lot of recipes here say, oh, add a teaspoon of water, add a tablespoon of water. You don't want the water in mousse. You already have the water from the egg whites that are whipped, so you do not want extra water. And water really doesn't help the chocolate melt if it's good quality chocolate. And so I don't really know why it's in the recipes, but you should not add water when you are melting chocolates. So I'm checking again, and my chocolate's gonna be almost ready. And so I've already whipped the egg whites, which I'm gonna show you here. So I've whipped the egg whites to a pretty firm consistency, firm but not overbeaten. So that's what we're going to use, and we're going to be very delicate with these egg whites. I think last year we did a class on was a flourless chocolate cake, which uses pretty much the same principle as the mousse. And we don't want to break the egg whites that we formed, because then they're going to get back to liquid, and then we're going to have a lot of liquid in our mousse, and our mousse is not going to set. So when we start incorporating the eggs, the egg whites in the chocolate, we're going to be quite delicate. So we want to use a spatula. Some people use a wooden spatula, a wooden spoon too, like I used before. But for that, I really actually like the spatula. And we want to use like the same movement over and over. We're not going to be like vigorously beating the egg whites in the chocolate, because otherwise we just get liquid, and we get kind of a eggy milkshake, I guess, and it will never set. So when we start incorporating, which we're going to do a little bit at a time, we want to be delicate about how we incorporate the egg whites in the chocolate mix. So I think the chocolate is ready. So I'm gonna come back to you in a second. Just getting my chocolate. So I have my chocolate melted, and I am gonna add the 2 egg yolks. So I want to tell people who are worried about raw egg yolks in this dessert. I've never heard personally of anybody who got sick from it. I know some people are scared of it, and if you're scared of it, just don't put the egg yolks in. It's fine, but you already broke the eggs to get the egg whites, so why not? So I use 3 egg whites here. I only use 2 egg yolks in there, and that will really add some richness to the dessert. So I'm gonna whisk in. First, I'm gonna whisk in the zest, orange zest, and a tablespoon of sour cream, which I said before, you could also do heavy cream, and some people use melted butter, or they melt a tablespoon of butter with the chocolate when they are melting, and that's fine too. I find that the butter, when it solidifies, because you have to chill that to get it to consistency, it becomes, it comes back to being butter. And so I just don't find that tasty. The sour cream also adds some of the sour cream taste to the mousse, which I find very nice. Just a little touch of sourness, which is really delightful. The heavy cream, you can use that, but you'd have to be lighter on the quantity, because otherwise you're adding liquid once again to the mix, and you do not want too much liquid. So same mix or whisk, I mean, it doesn't make, I just do it with my spatula, and I just mix it in all nicely. So the sour cream and the zest are incorporated. And then I'm gonna add the 2 egg yolks. And I'm gonna also incorporate them. So those you can incorporate vigorously. So that they get mixed in quite nicely. And you have to pause because it's telling me that my first batch of choux is ready. So without further ado, and they smell divine. And voila, the choux. So we have our cheese puffs. And they're cooked because the bottom is lightly brown too. And those browned are mostly from the cheese. I'm gonna wait for them to cool off just a little bit so that I can open one and show you inside. But I would say we have some pretty good little puffs here. The shape is a little erratic, but that's okay. We're at home baking. We're not at Master Chefs or the Great British Baking Show. So that's one batch of choux. Okay, so back to the mousse. So we now have this nice little mixture of melted chocolate, egg yolks, sour cream, and orange zest. And now we're gonna start incorporating our whipped egg whites. So we're gonna just take like something like that, like about a cup, big cup. And we are slowly gonna always do the same movement. So once you start the movement, say clockwise, I don't want you to start going counterclockwise, because what you're doing is you're breaking up these nice fluffy molecules. So that's what we're doing. We're just incorporating lightly. So that's like our little start. And you see how it's changing, and there's still chocolate that's not incorporated. That's okay, because we have a lot more egg whites. So another big egg white piece here. I would say it was 3 egg whites, and usually we'll go by 1 egg white. So that we should use in 3 times, incorporate in 3 different times. So still, I'm always turning the same way. And obviously what we're trying to achieve is not to just like mix it in so much so that it's all flat, but we want to break up those big lumps, because once the mousse is ready, we just want to see something that's colored, that has the color of a mousse, not like dotty, snowy flakes in the middle of very chocolatey spaces. So that's why you need to go and search really at the bottom of the dish to make sure you incorporate all the chocolate. As you see, there's tons of chocolate still here, not mixed. And I'm going to do that with the last syrup. Meanwhile, I'm still looking at my puffs. There's a couple more minutes and they're going to be good. The second batch. And I know I'm doing this with a fork, a dessert fork here. And I'm just trying to show you that you don't need a lot of costly instruments in your kitchen. A lot of times, there's a lot of tools that are sold that we really don't need. And most of the things you can achieve with a very limited kitchen tool selection. And there's a couple of good articles. I'll have to send you the link to one that I particularly like, that really says the minimum tools you need in your kitchen to bake and do kind of things like that, and cook without, if you don't have a lot of space to store everything, or if you don't have, if you don't have the money to invest in a lot of tools that maybe you'll use once or twice, just know that there's a lot of things that are really multitaskers and not expensive. So I remember to send you that over the weekend, because I think I had talked about it in a class before, but never sent the article. So it's starting to look more like a mousse, but you see there's still some white here, some big white blobs. I really want to incorporate those. So I'm almost at the end here of incorporating, I would say. You see at the bottom, I can still see when I peel down, I can still see, oh, now the melted chocolate that I was seeing at the bottom is completely disappeared. And because the egg whites are kind of going to expand in the mousse, we're pretty much there. Just a little more. If you were going to go past that more, that's when the egg whites are going to revert to liquid. So just so you know, I know I had said, whip the egg whites until firm before the class, if anybody has done it. And I kept them in the fridge after that, but I did them like half an hour before the class. You don't want to go past an hour. After that, you'll see if you move them around that the egg whites are starting to restart at the bottom, like its original form, basically. But it's even more liquidy, which is really bad for a dish that requires firm egg whites. So I don't recommend to do that much more in advance than an hour. And that's really a quick thing. I just didn't want to use the mixer that's very loud, as all you know, in the class. So we have our mousse, and mousse can be served in a nice bowl. Usually some people like to serve them in a big communal bowl where you're gonna, use a spoon to serve everybody, and then you can kind of decorate it on top. You could add some nice orange zest or some confit orange pieces. But I like to serve it individually, so it's easier it will set faster in the fridge. And I recommend at least 2 to 3 hours setting in the fridge. So that's not something you're gonna eat unless you go to bed very late, which I won't. You're not gonna eat that tonight if you made it. You probably eat tomorrow. You can go overnight. You can keep it for 2 to 3 days in the fridge. Obviously, you're gonna cover it with saran wrap. The saran wrap does not need to touch the surface. Mousse doesn't make a skin like some of the creams, like creme caramel or things like that. So you don't need to worry about that. Just like cover lightly all the ramekins together with saran wrap, and you are good. So this is it, and I think I'm gonna get my puffs before they're too baked. So another batch of puffs coming. Ta-da! So see, those are even more puffed than the other ones for some reason. And there's really, like I said, no rhyme, no reason. But those are really golden. And remember, we did the egg wash before we did cheese on those. So I left them like 1 more minute than the other ones did too, which might account for that. So I'm gonna take the first batch and I'm gonna cut it up to show you. So that's the shoe, and you break it apart, and it's basically a pocket of air inside. And it's very light, it's very airy, and it's cooked. I can see it's cooked. Yeah, so that's our shoe. So our shoe is successful. I'm gonna put my mousse in the old ramekins, and I wanna give a little thank you to Judy, who's a colleague at the library and who kindly gave me those for the class. So thanks, Judy. little Valentine ramekins, and they actually work perfect for chocolate mousse. And I'll be honest, I've already made chocolate pudding in them this past week, since I had them from last weekend. So that's little ramekins of mousse, which will be delightful tomorrow, and which I'm gonna pop in the fridge. So remember, egg whites, like eggs, take on a lot of the smells in the fridge, especially when they've been whipped and they're obviously out of the shell. So that's why I recommend you to cover it with saran wrap. And like my fridge doesn't smell anything. I keep baking soda in there, but there's certainly things in there that maybe they don't put off a lot of smell, but in the end, when you leave something for a couple of days without covering it inside, it will definitely take on the smell. So you obviously don't want that. You want your mousse to taste like chocolate and orange zest and liqueur. So that was the mousse. And to finish off, we have the truffles. So the truffles, I don't think they're not here. They call truffle. What they call truffle is a little different. Here, truffles are basically just chocolate, cream, a little touch of butter, alcohol if wanted, and then the mix is refrigerated. And then you take an ice cream scoop or just a spoon, and you make little balls and you roll them with your hands, and you dip them in 100% unsweetened hot cocoa. And that's it. And that those keep about 2 to 3 days in the fridge. If you make the mixture, which I've already made, like basically a ganache, you can keep that ganache covered in the fridge for a couple of days before you make the truffles. So that's really something too that you can make a couple of days, 2 to 3 days in advance total for a nice after dinner delicacy. And so what I did is I melted chocolate. You can use alcohol if you want, just a dab to give a little different taste. I melted chocolate. I added boiling heavy cream, and then I added a dab of butter, which is all with the quantities in the ingredients list. And then I refrigerated the mixture in the fridge. And you need to let it set for at least 4 hours. Okay, because once like right now, it looks very hard, but once we're going to dig into it, underneath is not going to be that hard. And you want to be able to either roll it with your hands or at least make a nice bowl shape with an ice cream scooper. Some people also make them, especially for Christmas, in the shape of bûche, which is like a Swiss roll, like a log. So they make them oblong and narrow, kind of like an eclair. So it's kind of like the puffs. Either you make them round or either make them in the shape of a bûche. The shape of a bûche, it's a little harder to achieve if you don't have like a print mold. And by hand, I wouldn't try it just because once you have the bowl of chocolates in your hand to shape the truffle, it starts to melt really fast just because of the temperature of our body and our hands compared to the chocolate. So that's something that once you get the mix out of the fridge, you want to get pretty fast, and especially roll it in this cocoa pretty fast. So some people also like those sprinkles, jimmies, apparently they're called around here. So you can also, instead of using the unsweetened cocoa, if you want a little more sweetness to them, because they are made with bittersweet chocolate, you can use jimmies, which will add a little fun for the kids, a little fun, different texture. You can also roll them in some nuts that have been crushed to also give them a nice taste / texture. So that's the finished product is really up to you. So I'll show you. Oh. So right now it's pretty hard. And so I'm gonna take a scoop and then I'm basically gonna use my hand because that's really the only way. And I'm gonna roll if it's not too hard, which I think it is. And so it's melting in my hand. So that's so that is not a success. So right now, what's happened is I made this morning. So this is a little too hardened. So we'll probably have to let it sit on the counter for 10, 15 minutes. So, but the consistency is right. So it looks completely glossy, even like a ganache. So it's basically what we made during the cooking of it is like a ganache. So it's completely uniform as far as the texture. When I mixed it together, it was very glossy and kind of not liquidy, but yeah, but like a nectar. Like if you bought some apricot nectar or something like that, that's the texture that it had before I cooled it. And so I'll definitely have to get it warmed up before I can form some. Yeah. So that's not so good. I should have gotten this out of the fridge earlier before the class. So apologies, but you will get the recipes. And once I form those, I will send you pictures of them in the cocoa butter. And once you've made them, you need to put them back in the fridge right away. And you can put them in little mini muffin tin cups, or if you're going to present them, or you can put them on a dish and with each other not touching themselves so they don't stick together in the fridge. So I would say that's a poor shape of a truffle. But that was the gist of it, was to have something that you could roll in your hands and then dip in the cocoa to enjoy, and it just like melts in your mouth. So when you eat it just melts. And I know when we were kids, there were some candies like that you bought at the store and that had to be stored in the fridge. And I know some people here talk about them, and they are basically the same texture. So they're really melty. They are strong chocolate because they are made of bittersweet chocolate and no sugar is added. So they're usually liked more by adults than kids. You could make them with a half mix of milk chocolate and dark chocolate to get them a little sweeter taste. Just melt the chocolates together and make sure you whisk really well to mix both the chocolates together, and you will get pretty much the same end product. So this is chocolate. So this is pretty much it for me. So now I'm waiting for questions. We have our shoes here. I wish you were all here. We could share the shoe instead of me having to eat them all.
Feel free to write any questions you have in the chat box.
This one looks almost like a little heart. And so see, puff of air right inside, all air. How long can the shoe stay in the freezer? I would say like a regular, like I made banana cake, bread and pumpkin cakes and stuff like that. I would say 30 days. I don't really. Yes, exactly. Actually, that's right. Somebody just said like a mini popover. That's actually a good comparison. I never even thought of it. Yes. It's less like popovers will be more creamy and have more of like a center because of their size. But the principle is kind of the same, yes. No more questions? Yes, they are served as an appetizer when they are in the savory form. And when they're in the sweet form, they are made either to be stuffed with crème pâte or ice cream, or they're, you know, to make a presentation like a croquembouche, like a pyramid assembled together, or a round cake. And usually they are glued with either chocolate melted or caramel. Thank you, Susan. So I'll have to bring some to the library tomorrow, whoever's working.
Yes, definitely.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody liked it, and happy Valentine's.
Happy Valentine to you. And thank you so much, Vero. And I will send out the recipes and also the recording link. And probably on Monday, I'll be able to put it up on YouTube as well. So you can look for that and all of the past ones that we've recorded on YouTube.
Thank you, Tricia. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you, Vero.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.